All right, I played about 10 hours of Juno this past free trial weekend, and I have some thoughts on the hero. First of all, I don't think she's OP, nor do I think she's weak. I genuinely think she's pretty balanced. I think the gameplay for me and for many people here probably agree that it felt a little awkward at first, right? But, you know, after a few hours, I feel like you get used to it. It kind of reminds me a lot of Baptiste when Baptiste first came out, because Baptiste felt very awkward with the way it kind of shot and healed. And then over time, you kind of get used to it and it gets a lot better afterwards. A couple of settings that I changed was number 1, toggle pulsar off, and number 2, crouch to descend. So you go to your options, you go to controls, hero and HUD, and then you do pulsar torpedoes toggle off, so that as soon as you to hold your torpedo to let it charge and then shoot it out, or else you just press it once and let it do it. Maybe it's personal preference, but I think the setting off is a bit nicer. And then crouch to activate Martian Overboots hover, I turn that on. You can make the mistake of accidentally burning a jump when you don't need to. So for example, if I want to just descend, right, by default you have to press your space button or your jump button, right? I might burn a jump before I descend by accident. But if you use crouch, at least now, I'm holding crouch right now, and at least I can save my jump without accidentally pressing the jump input. Does that make sense? Let's give some feedback on her in order of all her stuff. Let's start with her weapon. I think the 84 damage and the 84 healing is actually pretty solid. It's incredible if you have good aim. You can pocket someone and consistently pump them for 84 healing. Like there's this clip where I pocketed my Mercy during a res, right? Definitely don't pull out the torpedo because it's a little slower to build up, but if you have good aim, it can reward you for juicing them up. Heroes like Baptiste and Ana are like all or nothing. If you whiff the heal shot, you get nothing. But with Juno, there's a bit of forgiveness because there's 12 bullets, right? Your tracking may not be perfect, but you can land like 8 out of 12 bullets, which can still net you like 56 healing out of 84, 56 damage if they move a little bit. But for Ana, it's like if I'm pocketing someone, I hit one for 70, but then I whiff the next one, and then I hit the second one. On average, it's like 70, 0, 70. So it's like 35, 35, 35 healing, versus just a consistent, 56 if you're landing, at least 60, 66, 70% of your bullets. I look at the scoreboard of all my 10 hours of Juno, and I'm definitely putting out higher average numbers. Obviously, numbers are a little contextual based on the comp you're playing, who needs more resources, but on average, I'm pumping out more damage and healing per 10 than I am for Ana, for example. Baptiste, maybe not so much, because Baptiste is pretty forgiving as well with his heal, but he is an all or nothing by healing in the distance. If you chuck a heal grenade into a Pharah in the sky, you're probably gonna miss your Pharah, but as Juno, it's a reliable hit scan. So I actually think you should not be able to headshot. I know some people argue that she should be able to increase the skill ceiling, but I kind of disagree. I think it's fine to keep it this way. It adds a nice uniqueness and blend of a damage to heal one-to-one comparison, because obviously there's damage fall off and now there's healing fall off. Like, would it be outrageous to add an offensive headshot and a healing headshot where, you heal more for that? Maybe, but we also saw in the mirror watch mode where you're able to headshot as Ana, I think, with the shots and stuff. It's pretty damn strong. And I think not having headshot can kind of bridge the gap between low Junos and high Junos. Obviously, if you can headshot, the higher skill players will be a bit more rewarded, but the lower players might struggle a bit more if more of the value is baked into the headshot itself. And then also, like, there's this counter argument where it's like, why should supports be able to have movement, mobility like this, but also be able to headshot and duel all the DPS heroes? I think the way she is fine. Pick your battles, pick your struggles, DPS player. It was actually a DPS player, a lot of DPS players saying Juno should be able to headshot. Isn't your argument as a damage player that the support player shouldn't be able to duel you back like that? I think, yeah, the numbers are fine the way it is. I'm pretty sure they iterated and tried it with the headshot, and it's could be something they do for a new hero in the future. I think the biggest feedback with the Mediblaster is probably the sound, right? I know it's like a space alien techie plasma pistol, right? And it's like, it has this like wet pew pew sound, which is like, okay, well, I don't love it. And I think they could probably do a bit more with the sound effects and the feedback and distinguish between the damage and the heal to give you more of that dopamine hit and to make it a bit more distinguished than it currently is. There's something about it just not feeling satisfying, whether it's healing or damaging, which could be psychologically playing into why some players don't feel she's very good or underpowered. But then when you look at the scoreboard at the end, it's like, okay, wait a minute, she is pushing and pumping numbers. It just doesn't feel that way. So that's probably the biggest feedback with her weapon for me. Her passive ability, Martian Overboots, I mean, it just double jumps and hovers. Like, other than the crouch setting, I think it's fine the way it is. I don't have much feedback here. I kind of like it. Now the Torpedoes. I thought this ability is a little lackluster or weak at first because it takes so damn long to charge up and wind up, but it's super annoying when, like, you slightly break out of line of sight and then you just don't heal these people because they're not in LOS. But the more I played it today, I'm like, it's an okay ability. Maybe this is exactly where it should be. I didn't like it at first because it took too long to charge up and they could probably buff it. But at the same time, I think people were just using it wrong. I think you definitely use it in the pre-fight or the post-fight chase. I would almost never whip it out like in the middle of a 1v1 when I'm pocketing like 1v1 healing somebody or 1v1 like damaging somebody. It's much more worth it to just shoot your gun versus waiting for the pull and the wind up. It's much better value if there's multiple people in your line of sight, obviously, because it's multiple people. Maybe there is a world where you buff the lock-on target acquisition, but then, you know, lower the numbers to compensate to make it feel a bit better, but keep the power level roughly the same. But yeah, for now, I think people are just using it wrong. Again, pre-fight is good. Before anyone gets too low, you can make use of that little like healing over time or to chip away at some enemy HPs early on to help build your ult charge. You can also use it when you're repositioning and finding new angles, right? And then you're kind of re-peeking, but you like start charging it, wrap around the corner, try to sneak some damage in while they're all clumped. And then the chase factor is actually pretty good. For example, I know you can chase the torpedo on a Sombra. As long as you pre-lock the Sombra and she throws her translocator and goes invisible, it will follow the Sombra. Moira can definitely have great numbers on the scoreboard, but those numbers don't always contribute to a win. So it's important to consider the value outside of the scoreboard too. That's a fair point too. It was mostly just the feedback on how it feels in terms of generating value. The scoreboard can tell a story in terms of like how much output you're having, but yes, it doesn't necessarily contribute to like convert to a win. But it was mostly just the feedback on how it sounds and feels relative to the value you're generating. And the easiest way to see tangible value is just the number on scoreboard. In any case, Pulsar Torpedo probably could use maybe a lock-on increase timer. Obviously, also one important tip is that the lock-on is faster for closer targets. So obviously, if you're trying to lock on people really far away, it takes a little bit longer. Or maybe just don't do anything at all. People just have to learn how to use the torpedoes a little bit more. Next is the glide boost. I'm gonna be honest, this ability felt really awkward to use at first, since you're obviously only locked to one horizontal plane. But I actually found myself getting used to it after a few hours, and it's kind of fine. I've kind of learned how to play around it. I think there's an argument that people were asking to allow her to look up and look down so she can fly up and down, kind of like an Echo free flying, which could be very fun for the Juno player, but it'll probably be a nightmare for everyone else dealing with free aerial XYZ movement. Right now we're only on what's one horizontal plane? That's only X and Z, right? Not Y, which makes it a bit more easier to like counter and play around, which kind of leads to the whole balance idea. If she's able to free fly, that might be a little bit too powerful and contribute to the mobility creep. And like we'll run into nightmare situations where like a simple Mercy is able to like super jump previously with a shorter cooldown, and people were losing their minds and asking for that shit to get nerfed because she was so hard to kill. Now imagine Juno doing that with 50% speed boost, gliding like this the whole fucking time. I think the horizontal plane thing is fine, but one suggestion is instead of allowing her to ascend specifically, because that'll be a little too strong, maybe crouch could allow you to descend only. You can only go down, can't go up, to make it feel a little bit better. Because right now, if I want to go under here, I have to cancel the ability and then go down. But maybe there's a world where if I press it and I hold crouch or control a little bit, I can just dip down without canceling the glide boost completely. Not sure if that would lead to any balance issues, but it's just an idea. Anyways, moving on. Hyper Ring is the next ability. I think it's actually pretty good. It's great team utility. Really short range. And that's fine considering how powerful the ability is when utilized correctly for the team, right? I mean, sometimes I just chuck it out in the random direction so I can immediately get the speed boost, because you know, you get the speed ring buff for 3 seconds upon activation without ever touching the ring itself. Like right now, like I'm already getting it. No real feedback here. I think it's pretty good, like the way it is. I was like, man, this could be longer, but then that would be like a little too OP if I could shoot it out way further. So yeah, I think Hyper Ring is pretty good. Now, Orbital Ray. I don't know about you guys. I actually think this ultimate's kind of weak. I think people were overreacting when they saw the trailer, but I think the more you play with and against Juno, like maybe you guys feel the same as me, but you're not really able to stay in it very long. Because like a simple push by the enemy, like if I shoot it forward and their Rhine recognizes it, he walks up past it and you can't walk forward, then you're kind of screwed. It's pretty easy to counter. You shoot a Hanzo Dragon. I was watching ML7. He popped his ultimate. The enemy Bastion just dropped 3 ultimates, and then like their Bastion killed like 2, and he's like, oh shit. Like you can throw Torb ultimate through it. I mean, you can throw a Mei. Like the ring is slow. I actually think it's a little weak. But at the same time, there's pros and cons, right? For me, I was hoping it could move a little faster. Either move it a little, make it travel a little faster, or make it go infinite. Like Hanzo's Dragon Strike. It just goes across the map permanently. Like if this is just a straight line all the way down, You kind of have to chase it the whole time, but I think for it to go forever wouldn't be a bad buff idea. Maybe I'm cooking too hard with that, but that's just a couple of feedback suggestions. But obviously, like, without increasing the speed, the slow speed does have benefits when fighting over like small maps, like on Flashpoint or Control, or if like your Mauga cages, I can actually like chuck the thing and it's slow enough that he's able to sit in it almost the whole time. Like, there is some beneficial pro plays with it, but for the most part, I think it's kind of weak. You either buff some of the numbers, but if you don't want to just go and like number go up watch, then an adjustment to, yeah, let it go straight all the way through, or just increase the speed a little bit. But yeah, you get zoned out from it a lot. But yeah, more often than not, I found myself not really using it for very much, so it might need a small buff. That's my feedback on all the abilities. Some overall thoughts. I think a lot of people are actually misplaying her approach, and they think the mobility is enough to keep her safe, but I've actually found her pretty vulnerable at first. I died a lot because the mobility obviously doesn't give her any verticality, right? You're in one horizontal plane, so if you're in a bad spot, you can be killed by dive, especially. That's a pretty big weakness, like Winston, Tracer, Sombra, very quickly. And that's in combination with B. She has no self-heal or defensive ability to bail her out. No bailout abilities. Like, if we look down the list, right, almost all the supports have a bailout ability to save them in a duel. So if you're getting chased by like a Tracer, as an Ana, what can you do? You can nade, self-nade, sleep, regen burst, lamp, put up your shield, dash away to, and you know, hopefully your passive kicks into self-heal. Illaru, you got to play around your pylon. You can actually put your pylon down as a piece of cover. Kiriko can just TP out. Suzu, Lifeweaver dashes, heals 50 HP and pedals himself up. Lucio can amp heals, heal himself a lot and then ride away. Mercy doesn't really duel, you know, Tracers, you just have to fly. Moira can self-heal with the suck and the heal orb. Zen, no tools besides his ultimate, right? And Juno's kind of the same way. Juno's only tool is to just use natural cover and maximize her speed to get out if needed. So because there's no defensive bailout ability, Juno's got nothing besides her speed. So I think people were kind of like misplaying her approach. Like I said earlier, you kind of have to use your speed to wrap around hard cover, corners for hard cover, and then you kind of maneuver between high grounds with a double jump as needed. So I think the playstyle approach is that you should kind of play her a little bit like Poke, slower Zenyatta style, and like make use of the shield health to regenerate like Zen. Like, she's actually a bit safer than Zen if you think about it, outside of Zen's ultimate, because of the mobility. Slightly safer Zen. Stop flying out in the front line thinking you're invincible because you're so speedy and like peeking out because you're stuck on one plane. When I peek out like this, if I'm not air strafing, I just get picked out of the sky or like the mid height pretty fast. Yeah, play it slightly safer, and then the chase factor and then the team utility with the speed is really good though. Once you're cleaning up, then you can go crazy. But in the neutral poke, you kind of just have to sit there and just pew 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 for a bit. It's a little tough to take like strong off angles by yourself because you have no Kiri TP. You know, you can't just get away and heal yourself. Like, if they chase you down, you're kind of screwed. Well, with that being said, I do think her skill ceiling is very high, obviously, because of her movement and the interplay between the ducking and in and out of cover, when to chase, when not to chase, and of course, the agency and the decision-making between whether you want to shoot the enemy versus pocketing a teammate. Which one generates more value at a given game state? That's kind of like what makes Ana so fun and high skill cap, because you have to decide whether I'm going to damage or if I'm going to heal. Am I going to use my nade defensively? I'm going to use it offensively. I have to decide whether I shoot my teammate or shoot the enemies. I think my favorite, now let's talk about some synergies. I think my favorite tank to play Juno with, probably Ramatra, Rein, Mauga, Queen, mostly Brawl. I didn't actually mind it with Dive that much as well, with like Winston. I didn't get to play it much with Winston, or sorry, Ball, but I liked it with Winston. I liked it with Diva. I did not play it with Sigma, so I don't really have that much data on that, but definitely mostly Brawl, and I think she could actually be decent in Dive. Kind of like how they had Kiriko, Lucio, Winston comps early in season 1, 2, 3. You could probably run Juno with that, and it would probably be pretty acceptable as well. I don't really have a favorite damage hero combination, so I'm pretty indifferent here. My favorite support pairing is actually Brig, to kind of pack me and play it a little safe for a bit slower paced. And then for faster pace, I actually really liked it with Kiriko. Believe it or not, I didn't like it with Lucio, because obviously, you know, Lucio's double speed with the speed ring, and if you're cycling correctly, I'm sure it could be really good, but I mostly played quick play and Vera games, so we weren't really coordinated. I have a feeling that Lucio Juno could be very good if you're cycling your cooldowns correctly, because again, you're at the speed boost cap by default speed aura, Lucio plus speed ring. You're already at 75%. So if you're cycling the amp correctly, it could be very, very powerful in the right hands. But your average quick play people and viewer games that I played over the weekend, it was kind of like all over the place. So I didn't like it with Lucio. So I liked it with Brig. I liked it with Kiri. She's a pretty good generalist because she could do a little bit of everything. A little hit scan, got some utility and speed. She kind of slots in for most comps. She's like a perfect blending of the pair. Like, it's good for people who like hit scan aim style. Like me, I like Ana Bap. I actually hate playing Lucio, so this is like a perfect alternative for me. In any case, I actually think she's like a mid-tier hero overall. Probably a B, B+. That could probably go up if people put more hours into it. Definitely not OP, but definitely not as weak as people are saying. Like, how on earth are people gonna optimize or cap out her skill ceiling potential with a couple of hours of playtime in a single weekend? You definitely need more time to adapt and really figure out how to optimize and min-max her correctly. But, you know, this is a pretty good trial. They just have to iterate slightly on a few things, but not much tweaking needs to be done. I think she could be quite serviceable the moment she comes into ranked next month. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Juno.